Hi, my name is Eric Gibbons, and I've been an art teacher for over 30 years. And I'm going to be addressing education in general with the top 10 qualities of a great teacher. So, the first one is going to be patience. We need to remember that kids are kids. Now, this doesn't mean to forgive all of the behavior, but we need to address it. I like to sort of use this analogy. If you had a special needs students who maybe had Down syndrome and they dropped their books or did something inappropriate, you wouldn't yell at that student or get angry at them. You would just sort of address the issue and help them take care of it and then move on. We need to remember that all of our students are kind of unformed adults. These are people in transition from, their baby, behavior to their adult behavior, and now they are somewhere in between. So sometimes these outbursts, these behaviors that become very distracting, are not really on purpose. It's part of the syndrome of being a young person. And if we kind of recognize that, it takes the sting out of their behavior, that it's less personal. It can feel very personal, but it's not. They just can't help it. So that has gotten me through a lot. When I was a young teacher, I was giving out a lot of detentions. I was raising my voice a lot. And by my fifth year, I thought this can't be sustained. And it was then that I decided to try and get through an entire year without raising my voice. And that's when I came up with a lot of strategies that helped me to become a better teacher and to recognize that these behaviors are just part of the syndrome of being young, and that really took the sting out of that kind of stuff. So that helped a lot. But if you can't see yourself as having patience or working towards that, this is definitely not the profession for you. Consistency is very important. Students have a very strong feeling about what is fair and what is unfair, and they recognize it immediately. And if you are unfair, you will have a hard time maintaining control of your classroom because you will have lost the respect. So when I have rules, and we actually come up with them together, the students and I write the rules at the beginning of the year, usually on the first day. When somebody breaks those rules, we have come up with some consequences. And whether it is your favorite student, the blessed one in the classroom who can do no wrong, if they do something wrong, you need to apply those consequences equally. And your students are looking to see, will you or won't you? And that is important. So consistency in how you do discipline in your classroom, but also consistency on how you start your class, how you end your class, how you maybe take a break in the middle, how you handle testing. Consistency is really, really important for a teacher. And then consistency even in uploading your data. If you have students absent, you need to be making sure that you are entering that information. Professionalism. Keeping your private life private is very important. A lot of teachers who are new to the profession feel like they want to be liked by their students. And I think that's a real trap. You need to be their teacher. You need to be that consistent person. And though you don't necessarily have to hide your personal life, I think it's unwise to put it out there. I think it's unwise to treat your students as if they were contemporary friends. You need to make sure that they understand that you are the teacher and they are the student. You can be friendly without being, a friend, so to speak. What you do on social media will be available to everyone. So I lock down all of the information that I have on my Facebook profile, so only friends and family can see it, and even friends and family can't see what I have liked, what I have interacted with, so I lock all that down. I also limit my social engagement to just a couple of platforms, because if you have too many, it's too much to kind of keep control of. So that would be important. If you have a difficult time separating your personal life from your professional life, it can put you into hot water, and we've seen that in legal cases for teachers. Organization is the next one. And organization is very important as a teacher because are some legal requirements you have as a teacher to do attendance, and it needs to be accurate, to do the grades in a way that you can justify why one student got a C and one student got an A, even between one student getting an A minus and another student getting an A plus. So having a good, rigorous rubric is really helpful because that can kind of back you up. Otherwise, grades can feel sort of arbitrary, and if you have a parent who's going to argue with you over the difference between an 88 and a 91, it is important that you're able to kind of back that up. Poor organization can put you into legal trouble and even put your teaching certificate at risk. So it's important that you stay organized, that you're addressing your curriculum, that you are keeping your students safe in that environment by being consistent, by applying the rules of the classroom, the rules of the school. But the big thing for teachers is going to be the vast amount of paperwork and computer work that you need to do to stay on top of it. If you lag behind, if you let things go, it can pile up to an unmanageable amount. So organization is very important. Now, I, at home, am not very organized as an art person. Things are a little bit cluttered. I know where everything is in the piles that I have created, but I realize that in school I need to stay on top of things. I address emails immediately when I get them, particularly if they're from administration, and I make sure that I am consistent with doing attendance as soon as students enter the room. Communication dexterity is the next thing that I have on my list, and it's really important because you need to communicate effectively and yet differently for kids, parents, colleagues, and administrators. If you communicate poorly with students, they are not going to succeed and you're going to be labeled a bad teacher. If you communicate poorly to parents, you're going to get complaints to your supervisor. If you communicate poorly to colleagues, you will be isolated. If you communicate poorly to administration, it can affect your working conditions and your employment. So it is important to always reread emails before you send them off, to always spell check things, and to put your best face forward. Sometimes the best response is no response. To wait and think, particularly if you get an angry email from a parent, do not reply immediately. Sometimes you need to close it, walk away, share it with a colleague who maybe has that same student. There may be additional information you are unaware of. So it is important that you are very careful about that kind of communication. The next one is the ability to ask for help. Particularly as a new teacher, you will need to figure out who around you can help you and won't be overwhelmed by you asking them. And to handle what you can on your own, to look up the resources the school has provided for you, but also don't be afraid to ask for help. It's great to be an island. It is pretty to be on an island, but it can also be a very lonely place. So usually if you're a new teacher, a school will set you up with a mentor, but if they do not, it's important for you to seek one out. Ask your administration who has great classroom management. Talk to that person. Who handles the paperwork really well. Talk to that person. So find good people in your school building that can help you when you need the help. Do what you can on your own. Don't overwhelm these people, but definitely ask for help. The other one is to be able to think on your feet because stuff happens. We can have alarms, we can have lockdowns, we can have conversations come up in the classroom that are really important to address, issues that sort of arise, and you need to be flexible. You can have a plan and think of that as your framework, but be ready to diverge and to be able to come back to that plan. It is important to address these things because lessons can change on the spur of the moment, and if you're too rigid about what you're doing, you might miss an opportunity, or you might let something go that you really needed to address, particularly if it's a bullying issue. Maybe somebody uses language that's inappropriate in class, and if you just say, hey, let's not do that, and you move on and you don't address it, there can be legal ramifications for that. So be prepared to be able to think on your feet and change as things arise. Emotional detachment is one that I put up there, and I don't mean being cold, but to also just not take everything personally that happens in school. Kids will say horrible things once in a while. Kids will do horrible things. Kids will do insensitive things, and you need to be detached in order to kind of handle that. But there will also be times where you feel like you want to reach out and help the student when it's not appropriate for you to do that. Unless you're a licensed therapist, you should not be offering therapy to your students. Listen, be watchful, but refer that information to the appropriate people in your school, whether that is the school therapist or a guidance counselor or something like that. You need to loop those kinds of people in because you're not supposed to do everything. You are not the emotional coach of your school. But also there's this sense of you are the teacher and they are the student. You can't take on that parental role because the parents are there for that. Now, we can be mentors to our students. That's great. But to get yourself emotionally wrapped up in them can lead you into dangerous areas. So to remember who you are and what you are to that student and to remain true to that. And if you're not sure where that boundary is, talk to a seasoned teacher who has experience who might be able to help you through that. Number 9 is to seek professional growth, to stay current with what's going on in education. Your school may have certain mandates that are coming out, certain things that they want to focus on, and it's important for you to kind of learn about that. What was true for science when I was in elementary school is no longer true today. So if you have been teaching for a long time, you need to double check, hey, has that information changed? Has it been updated? Is Pluto a planet this time, or has that changed? So staying current is important, but also talking to colleagues who teach the same thing you do and finding out what they're doing that is successful is great, because there may be new practices that they're doing. A big thing now is gamification of education. If you don't know what that is, you need to find out. And there will be other things that come. Now, some things will come and go. Sometimes old initiatives become new initiatives, become old initiatives. Things sort of change. But you need to keep your eye on what is going on currently in your field in education. The last one is to love your subject. Students can tell right away if you are phoning it in, if you are burnt out, if it is time for you to go. You need to have a love for what you do. And sometimes, like for me as an artist and an art teacher, I can go home and I can paint, I can draw, I can sculpt, I do a lot of writing and publication, and that brings me joy. So I find joy in creative endeavors, and that ties really well into me being an art educator. But let's say you're a math teacher, you're really good at it, you enjoy math, but you don't want to go home and solve problems or create tables. Then you need to find your creative therapeutic outlet outside of that. I have a friend who was a math teacher and he just loved playing golf. That was his thing to kind of get away, and gardening. And he had an amazing garden, and that was his joy. You need to find something else. If you go home and you just plop in front of the TV and that's it, I think you're going to find yourself burnt out in a short amount of time. So find the joy outside of teaching. Now, if your subject is your joy, continue doing that, and it will infect your students with that joy of art for me, but for other teachers it might be something else. So find your bliss, find your joy, and tap into that, and your students will be pulled along as well. If you found this information helpful, please definitely subscribe and check out my other videos on my channel. Thank you.